Hi, everyone. Welcome to Stogie Geeks News for July 24th, 2015. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined on the lines via Skype by Will Cooper. Welcome, Will.
Hey, Paul, how's it going?
So, Will, we want to know what happened at IPCPR 2015. What's the good word?
Well, yeah, I just got back from IPCPR earlier this week. The show wrapped up on Tuesday afternoon. It was held in New Orleans. It went back to New Orleans for the first time since 2010. Um, there was a lot going on with this show on the floor and off the floor, and we'll talk about a lot of the products in the next few weeks. But really, I think there were two main stories from the floor that took place. The first was the attendance, and the second was the interesting story around Hirochi Robanya, which I had a
Hmm.
chance to get to the bottom with, or at least get some more information as I talked to the owners of La Polina and Kubanakan.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with the attendance.
Yeah.
I have not seen the final attendance numbers as of yet. I think the overall perception is there was a downstream in attendance. If you look at basically who's waiting outside the doors in the morning to get in onto the trade show floor, and then who's on the trade show floor and how crowded the booths were, it was down. It wasn't empty. I think it was down. But I started as I went to the various manufacturers, there was a common theme that took place: less traffic, more buyers. In terms of less tire kickers came down to New Orleans, and more people who were really serious about seeing the products and bringing them into the shops where the orders were being placed. So a lot of companies were reporting either the same numbers year to year or an increase in sales from last year, which I thought was a real interesting trend, to say the least.
That's good. Do you think that the vape industry has affected cigar sales?
It was interesting. I think it has, but here's the interesting thing. Last year, the vapes were a part of the show floor. So they were in there, and there were a lot of people with the cigar industry who didn't like that. But let me be real. These are tobacco retailers, and a lot of them do sell vapes, and they want to
Mm-hmm.
have vape products. This year, the vapes were over on a separate end. It seemed like there were less vape companies than in previous years
Mm-hmm.
there for whatever reason, and they were kind of off to the side right now. And they seem to have more or less traffic than maybe the cigar people did. But I think a lot of the cigar company. I mean, I've talked to one major retailer he's a cigar guy through and through, but he recognizes the market for vapes right now, and he's not going to turn his back on that market either.
Interesting. So what were some of the hot cigars? Really
Um,
quick.
Real quick, I'd say, and I did a preview before the trade show of what I thought the five hardest cigars would be. I'll
Which I
just
thought was
go
awesome. I agreed with
right,
that list
and then
wholeheartedly.
I got yelled at. But okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you the two. So let me tell real quick with the list. Padron Damaso, which we've talked about, that's the Connecticut shade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think everyone was talking about it. Great cigar, from what I've heard. I haven't smoked mine yet. Davidoff Escurio, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about that on Stogie Geeks. That's the Brazilian influenced cigar, red hot. Steve Saka, Sobre Mesa. The guy didn't give out any samples. No one's seen that
Did he
cigar
even
until
have cigars at the show?
he did, and he was just so picky. I was sitting with him, and he didn't like the way it was burning,
Mm-hmm.
so he was being very forthright and honest. He's saying to people, he's even telling people, don't buy this, don't buy. He's telling consumers, don't buy the box of the cigar until you've had a chance to try it. I mean,
Right.
so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's real interesting. But so I mean, he was slammed for a guy who no one saw what the final product looked like, and he was racking up orders left and right.
Yeah, it's people believe in his personal brand, and I like Steve a lot, so
Yeah,
I'm happy
yeah.
for him.
Oh, and he just couldn't have been more generous with his time. Caldwell's Blind Man's Bluff was red hot. That's
Mm-hmm.
the cigar that's being made at Camacho. Caldwell Booths for the last 2 years has been slammed, but that was his new product he came with there. And then the Pete Johnson Henry Clay,
Mm-hmm.
which he's doing with Altadas, the collaboration, sold out on day one.
Wow.
So I mean
Interesting.
that's yeah. So those were the five I picked. Now there were a couple that trickled in afterwards. I got a message from Jonathan Drew. How come Underground Shade is not on that list? And you know what my answer was? It should have been, but unfortunately the article went out before you announced the shade. But I said it was an absolute buzz of the show. Drew Estate going in with a Connecticut shade for much of the same reasons that Padron went in
Yeah,
there.
because companies that haven't had a Connecticut shade are now coming out with a Connecticut shade, and I think the market, in my opinion, is redefining Connecticut shade. In fact, I just saw a picture on Facebook about the new prototype for a new Tatuaje M80, which had a Connecticut shade.
Yeah, and I think that was the M80's Dave Garofalo's cigar.
Mm,
And Pete's done some very good Connecticut. I mean, Cabo Guan is a great line.
love that cigar.
Yeah, and I love. And a lot of people, it was mixed reaction, but I love the Pudgy Monster Tiff as well. I think that was really
Yeah.
good. So Pete can do stuff with Connecticut. There's no question about it.
Yeah. No, I think that's
Um,
I think that's a trend that we're seeing in uptick, redefining the Connecticut
Yep.
still.
Yep. Yep. Oh, I agree. And then another one just was really, and they just held off until the show opened, was the Monte Cristo 80th anniversary, which
Hmm.
I do have a sample of, and that seemed to go. That was that's a real high end Monte Cristo. That's it seemed, I believe that sold out or came very close to selling out as well.
Now, Phil's Indian Motorcycle Ultra Premium is one that I've had on my wish list of cigars to try as a new cigar coming out into the market. Did he have samples, or was he
Yeah.
not ready yet?
I didn't get any samples, but knowing Phil,
We'll
we'll
receive
talk
some,
to him.
yeah.
We'll receive some when we're ready. I tell you what, he got a lot of buzz, before the show because of the fact that he's crossing over into this other area. He talks about the debonair ideal and how you kind of go from idea to ideal, and now he's appealing to a lot of motorcycle
Hmm.
enthusiasts as well as auto enthusiasts. And as the cigar was starting to get some momentum before the show, I saw a lot of publications online of automotive and motorcycle publications talking about the cigar, and it's really authentic to that. Phil talked about that early Americana look, and absolutely, when you look at the packaging, and there's some packaging pictures on Cigar Coop, he keeps to that. His booth was absolutely he had one half debonair, one half Indian motorcycle. I think this was a really good show for Phil. So I saw more traffic in the booth than probably have. He's always had a very interactive booth. This year it just seemed like he was really, really busy. And we know Phil, so I did talk to Phil for a while, and he was very pleased with what was happening at the show.
You said you had some news on Hirochi Robanya? Robania?
Yeah, yeah. So if folks probably know, on a week before the show, Hiroki Rabanya announced he did that HR cigar with Kubanakon. It was announced he is leaving HR, and he's going to be joining a factory called La Corona. La Corona is a factory that was owned by Omar Gonzalez, who is the master blender for Kubanakon. And so he was joining that factory. And at the same time, La Polina announced that they will now be working with the La Corona factory for doing Nicaraguan-made cigars, which
Hmm.
they don't have a
An offering,
Nicaraguan.
yeah.
Right. So looking at this, it was a very interesting thing because there was some rumors going around that Kubanakon had no factory, which is not true. Some publications reported that, but what was really the case is Kubanakon had the Kubanakon factory and the La Corona factory.
I
The
gotcha.
the big question is, where's HR going to wind up right now? Both Kubanakon and La Corona are claiming to have the rights to that name. At the Kubanakon booth, they were taking orders for the
HR.
HR.
Hmm.
I went and talked to Bill Paley, who's the owner of La Polina. He said, I'm making no claims to the HR line, but it wasn't, he's going to be working on his own projects there. But Hirochi's now with La Corona, so it's interesting to see what's going to happen with HR. On the other hand, I talked to Robert Medeiros, the owner of Kubanakon, and he's pretty much saying, "Look, right now. I'm not giving. This is a red hot brand, and it's a cigar to candidate in a lot of
Hmm.
people's minds. He's not going to give that up. Just give it up. But at the same time, he realizes probably HR is not the future of his company. He's got a new Medeiros line coming out. He's expanding the Kubanakon lines, and he said he's got a couple new brands coming out next year. So, but he's obviously going to be moving away from that. So this is still to be determined, but it was the talk of the show. And
Interesting.
Hirochi was at the La Polina booth when I saw him there.
Will, closing thoughts on IPCPR 2015?
I think it was a good show. I don't think, in terms of product, I don't think it was the best IPCPR in terms of what I've seen, but it was a well organized show. I think with some of the smoking restrictions that were placed, they did a good job with it. I think it's going to be much better served back in Las Vegas for the next 3 years. So I don't think IPCPR is going away anytime soon with the trade show.
Our IPCPR 2015 coverage will continue on cigar-coop.com and on the Stogie Geeks show, so make sure you tune in to our show and read the blog. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Thank you.